we welcome Mr. Matt Kibbe in. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Glenn.
So I can't even imagine what this documentary cost. It is really, really good. We're up to episode number 4.
Yes.
The Coverup. And this is the one where it all is laid out crystal clear with all of the evidence. And it was so satisfying for me to watch because we had some of this evidence when I did a special, I don't even know, 4 years ago. And you could connect the dots. You could see it, but a lot of it wasn't there. You had to take the leap of faith that, yes, that dot and that dot, they're only missing the connecting dot that I can't prove right now. You have all of the connecting dots. My wife, who doesn't really get into these things usually, we were watching it last night, and she watched it. And I can't tell you how many times she went, oh, my gosh. Oh, you've got what? I mean, Fauci, I believe, thinks he's God. It is astounding how long he's been involved in this and how much power he has. Take us from the beginning of this episode.
It's almost unbelievable, right? When you watch this, if we didn't have the receipts, you would think,
no way.
You're just going all Alex Jones here.
Yeah.
And, that was like...
Which, by the way, Alex Jones is starting to make more and more sense.
Right. Yeah, I say that as a compliment at this point because he warned us about so much of this. And this starts with my very first conversation with Jay Bhattacharya. And he casually mentioned to me on my show the first time I interviewed him that this explosion of funding for gain-of-function research happened after 9/11. And I'm like, and that stuck with me ever since. And what Richard Ebright documents in this series is the origins of Fauci's power, the origins of the money, the origins of this mad science experiment that we were going to sort of weaponize viruses, supposedly in the name of biosecurity. And it starts with Dick Cheney, who has an obsession about the limits to the government's ability to develop bioweapons agents, again, ostensibly to keep us safe.
But it's... Okay, go ahead.
And
it's so frustrating to watch this twisted logic. There is no reason to do this gain-of-function research over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Fauci had been asked, and he never answers the question, and all scientists agree it cannot be you. You do not have to do this to find an antidote to this.
Right.
And that's the one thing I was left thinking. I mean, is this almost an Operation Paperclip Nazi kind of, we have the power to create this evil stuff that could wipe out all of humanity. Let's do it.
Yeah. It reminds me of a more evil version of nation building, this arrogance that says we could airdrop into another country and teach them Western values and teach them about our Constitution, and suddenly there's property rights and there's rule of law, and it works. And it doesn't work. It's a form of central planning, right? Mm-hmm. It's a form of hubris. And this takes it one step further because you're trying to reimagine nature itself.
Yes.
You're trying to re-engineer nature.
Yes.
And, it starts with Cheney, but it also you can even go back to Richard Nixon, who signed a bioweapons treaty that said we weren't going to do it. And this is what Dick Cheney was chafing against. And DOD and these other defense agencies had an office in their agencies that made sure that they didn't violate that treaty. But USAID, NIAID, NIH do not have compliance offices. So it's a money laundering scheme to do these mad science experiments that they couldn't do legally otherwise. And now, Elon is revealing all of this. You've been talking about it for years. It's a really, really evil, arrogant thing that happened.
Oh, evil.
Yeah.
Evil. When you see Fauci doubling down, because he's been called on it for years.
Yeah.
And most people don't remember it. I mean, it was front page New York Times and Washington Post for years the things that he was responsible for. I mean, the bird flu. How many chickens did we have to kill, Pat? What was that?
145 million since 2022.
145 million chickens. You want to know why the price of eggs is up? That's why.
Genocide.
Yeah. And so we're killing them all. Why are we? What happened? If I'm not mistaken, I learned last night in watching the Coverup that that's Fauci too.
Right. There's more experiments that we even know about, but the ones that we know about start with so Cheney and Fauci gets this huge pay raise to be the czar of gain of function research, and one of his first projects was to recreate the Spanish flu, which did not exist on the planet Earth. They actually dug up a body and recreated it from scratch, and then they published how to do it in a science journal. And Congress rightfully said, "Are you insane?" Fauci gets called in, and this is the first of many times he says, "It's worth the risk. I've decided it's worth the risk." And the firestorm goes away. And then there's various wild experiments with the bird flu that come very close to catastrophic leaks out of labs, because every time that Fauci gets called before Congress, he says, we're gonna up security, we're gonna develop protocols, we're gonna really focus on safety, but they never really do it.
No, in fact, it seems to get worse every time.
It gets worse because the program expands and expands. It's like this crazy quilt of countries and universities now that are doing this kind of research. And
I mean, doing it in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine.
It'll be the end of us if we don't stop it.
Right.
And that's why I'm obsessed. And that's why Ebright is obsessed. That's why Rand Paul is obsessed. And it's you mentioned this, but it's fascinating to point out. Everyone's like, why did Biden give Fauci a blank check going back to 2014?
Mm-hmm.
And this is well documented in this episode, because starting in 2015 is when Fauci and Francis Collins, the head of the NIH, started willfully ignoring the law against gain-of-function research explicitly on coronaviruses.
So here is my my only question, and I think I have the answer. Why would Fauci do this? There was literally almost every scientist saying, don't do this. There's no reason for this. And he just keeps going into the most dangerous things we possibly can. Why? If you know his history, he's the consummate apparatchik. And when Dick Cheney goes to him and says, I have this idea, he's like, and Fauci's answer, I wasn't there, but Fauci surely said, hold my beer, I'll do that. If you're going to give me all that money and power, I will do it. If I have a chance to reimagine nature, I'm up for that task. And he's written about it. Like I keep quoting this article that he and his now probably going to jail partner David Morans wrote a piece in Cell in 2020 talking about bending modernity and reimagining how we live our lives, from where we live to how we travel to how we gather. So he has this God complex. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he had it when he said yes. He might have just been being a good bureaucrat and saying, well, oh, wow, lots of money. I could grow my power. You're going to pay me a lot more. But in that echo chamber over the next 20 years, where every scientist, I mean, you went from the scientific community blowing the whistle and saying, this is crazy. It gets a little quieter every time that Fauci's caught doing something, because at some point they're all on the payroll. And if you want to stick your neck out like Richard Ebright did, you might lose all of your NIH grants. You might lose your university position because your university is addicted to all of this gain-of-function funding. So they've bought and paid for science itself and corrupted the process to the point where we shouldn't trust the science, because it is not science. It is this mad science arrogant project. When Fauci said disagreeing with me is disagreeing with science, Was that a God complex, or was that I fund all the science? So go ahead, disagree with all you want, but I control the science.
Yeah, I think it's both. And I do think that when Rand Paul started questioning him, he had never, ever faced someone that was both skeptical and informed. And so he's been able to BS his way past senators and congressmen, because you can sort of throw a bunch of words and sciencey stuff at them, and you can change the definition of gain-of-function research, and virtually no one, except for a few people that have either done their research or have been following him, have any idea that he's just lying to you. So I think it was both. At that point, he was, in his own mind, the god of science. But he also wasn't used to people questioning his authority.
Like I said, when I first started talking about this today, my wife and I watched it last night, and she gasped several times. So did I. And you won't believe it. I mean, just talking about it here does not do this justice. In seeing what Fauci has done and what we're dealing with now all over the world, and how it is still growing, you will be saying to President Trump and RFK and Bhattacharya and everybody else, arrest this man. Stop this right now. Because if, like you said, you know how I feel about AI. That is we're just, it's nitroglycerin in a paint shaker. Hey, let's give that a whirl. This is probably closer to killing us right now, because all it takes is one mistake in any of these crazy labs, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody is admitting it. It has to be completely exposed. Every name needs to come out. There needs to be punishments for it, and all of it burnt in an incinerator.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot like a nuclear weapons arsenal. And this is something that Dr. Ebrard talks about as well. The risk grows exponentially as you expand the program, because if you have a couple of universities, if you have a couple labs doing this, you know where it is.
Right.
But now it's all over the place.
Right. And you've got all these people.
Right.
Somebody mad, somebody disgruntled, somebody just stupid, somebody, makes a mistake. Every time this program grows. Yeah.
By the way, and this is something we also talk about, the anthrax attacks, which conveniently happened 1 month after 9/11. Well, we eventually learn, or at least are told, that it was in fact a government-financed lab that had access to anthrax, that allegedly caused this, which paved the way for all of this funding that we're talking about. It wasn't just the Patriot Act. It was additional legislation that massively expanded the money that Fauci would get control of. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but oddly enough, the guy that was accused of doing that committed suicide before he could be prosecuted.
Yeah, I know. That stood out to me yesterday, too.
Yeah.